are joined by Alexander Zeidelson, CEO and founder of Beam. Beam is an exciting privacy coin project that's built using the Mimblewimble cryptographic scheme. The project launched their mainnet release in early 2019, and they're headed to consensus in 2 weeks. So we wanted to sit down and see what they're up to. Alexander, how are you doing today?
Great. Very glad to be here. Excited.
Likewise, we're happy that you could join us. So what does your day-to-day look like?
It's very diverse, right? So in the crypto world, you have to, I have to manage the company. So we have all kinds of meetings, internal discussions all the time, talking about the plans, what we build next, playing with the product. Then we are talking to the community. Then we're talking to different partners, exchanges, journalists, merchant services providers, and that kind of stuff. Then you talk to investors, your existing investors, your future potential investors, building our roadmaps. It's a very active life with a lot of stuff to address. And then suddenly there is a tweet about something, or suddenly you have to retweet that, now we released a new version of this and that, and then somebody says something. So it's like a lot of different activities. So right in the beginning, the idea was to organize a funded group of great people who can execute quickly and build a best-in-class privacy coin that will address the needs of tomorrow. We understood that privacy enough per se is not good enough, that we also need to think in the future. We need to also think about a system which can live with the existing legacy financial establishment. And that's where the idea of opt-in compliance came from. Today, we position Beam as first and foremost a best-in-class privacy coin, but our longer-term vision includes a privacy coin that's eventually suitable to be used by business. And that means it needs to support some sort of audit reporting.
But it's opt-in, it's not necessarily the default feature.
That's the idea, right? Because governments kind of like Bitcoin. I mean, there is some stuff that is like very friendly to regulation or to governments, because everything is an open book, right? So if you have some resources and it becomes easier with time, you can see everything. That's what they kind of like. Now, what they don't like is that other governments and other people and anyone, anywhere can also see the same. So what they would probably love to do is to have a system where only they can see everything and nobody else can. The technology genie is out of the bottle. So we see the future of money and digital instruments as having a significant portion of activity that is confidential but can be disclosed to the government. Again, and it's important to say, it can be disclosed if the owner wants to do so. And we believe most businesses will want to do so. That leaves people their right to their privacy, meaning that if I don't want to disclose my information, somewhat similar to what happens today with cash, right? I don't have to inform anyone, and that's good. And we're seeing that this liberty is being kind of taken away from us slowly, but steadily. So crypto and confidential crypto returns that. We want to build a hybrid system which gives both privacy but can also be accepted and embraced by businesses on a large scale. I'm not sure we want to live in a world like that you don't have privacy at all. People don't really realize that. People don't realize that because they think, well, why do I need privacy and I'm not doing anything wrong? But then I usually ask you, okay, so now imagine I see all your credit card statements. And then I can tweet about you. Oh, why did he go to the liquor store on a Thursday, right? And there might be nothing bad about that, and the person might have perfect explanation. But this very possibility of somebody poking into your life like this is frightening. Just to think about a very ordinary person who suddenly has all their finances exposed, they can feel that it can be very bad, right? Because it can be then watched and interpreted in all kinds of ways that are hurtful.
Why don't we talk a little bit about the actual implementation? So Beam is built on top of Mimblewimble, which is a cryptographic scheme that now with Bitcoin, when you send a Bitcoin to somebody, you publicize the address that you're sending Bitcoins from, the address that you're sending Bitcoins to, and the amount of coins that are With Beam, none of that happens. How exactly does that occur? How do you guys pull that off?
Bitcoin, if you put it like in a very simple metaphorical way, is like a huge table, a ledger with numbers and balances, and also with a history of all the transactions. Keeping that this way gives everyone a way to validate that everything is okay. Mimblewimble is built on a different paradigm. And by the way, in that it's very different from all the other privacy coins, because the privacy coins like Monero, Zcash, and some others, they took the Bitcoin paradigm and added a lot of complex and beautiful stuff on top to hide things. Although it might give good privacy, the price is that the blockchain becomes much bigger. Now, Mimblewimble is different. So the Mimblewimble, the paradigm is not a ledger of transactions and of accounts. Instead, you can think of Mimblewimble as a huge wall of safe deposit boxes. Imagine a bank vault with a lot of safe deposit boxes, okay? And they all look exactly the same. What users have is they have keys to those safe deposit boxes. So as a user, I don't have an address in Mimblewimble. Instead, I hold keys to one or more safe deposit boxes. Now, when I want to send you some funds, I take one of those safe deposit boxes. You create a new safe deposit box for yourself with the funds that I plan to send you, and I create a new one for myself with a change. Let's say I had 100 in my initial one, and then I want to send you 50, so you create one with 50, I create one with 50, and we do that by talking, okay? So there is a conversation between the two of us. It's not just sending and forgetting, it's a conversation. And then what we do is we take those three safe deposit boxes that are locked, and we send them to the miners, to the community, to everyone to validate. What they validate, the total amount that went in equals the total amount that went out. And they do this without knowing the actual amounts. Everything they know is that there was one box and it was divided into two. And that whatever was in the first box was divided between the two output boxes, meaning that no new money was printed. So one deposit box, one safe deposit box becomes two safe deposit boxes with different keys. And you now have your key from your box, and I have the key from my new box, and the old box is destroyed. So then nobody can tell how much money I have because there is no relation between my different safe deposit boxes, and there is no indication that it even belongs to me. Only I know that. The cryptography comes in when you want to prove the sum of inputs equals the sum of outputs. Mm-hmm. There is a cryptographic proof, and then there is what's called zero knowledge range proof, because you also need to make sure that the amounts are above zero. Because if I could take 100, give you 200, and give myself minus 100, and then the sum would still be same, right? 100 here, 100 there, but then we printed money out of nowhere. The community, the network needs to validate that all the amounts in the inputs and the outputs are positive. And we do that, again, without letting them know what the amounts are. The transaction history actually doesn't have to be stored. It's not stored. So the blockchain is just the current state of all those safe deposit boxes. Okay, and then there's the list of what's called transaction kernels, which just hold like a very small proof that the transaction was valid without any information in it. Mm-hmm. So at any moment, any new node joining the network needs to download the current state and the proof that it was reached in a valid way. And it can also validate in the very same way as we did with our transaction. It can validate that the total amount of Beam coins in all of the boxes equals the total amount of coins that were ever mined. When a coin is minted, this is a public event, public transaction.
Would the transaction kernel be used for the opt-in auditability if a business wanted to prove?
Partly, yes. The transaction kernel is a very nice thing which is extensible. So we can put more stuff in there. And that stuff could include, say, a hash of some sort of a document package that was signed while doing this transaction. Now, and the conversational nature of the protocol allows for that. What we can do with Mimblewimble is, okay, I want to send you 10,000 Beam, but when I do that, I check the checkbox and my wallet tells your wallet, well, I want an invoice, okay? And then you get like a pop-up message saying, please attach an invoice, or send a link to an invoice, or something like that. You do it, then I receive it and I validate this is fine, and then I add the hash of invoice or whatever else was part of this transaction to the kernel, and then it can later be proven that this particular transaction was done against those particular documents.
I just wanted to, I guess clarify. So, looking at the roadmap, Beam isn't intending to become some sort of smart contract platform in the future with smart contract functionality, correct? It's privacy point focused and.
Actually, we are having some thoughts about that as well.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, it's pretty early, but Beam is more and will be more than just blockchain for one Beam coin. Very early in the development, we published the fact that there can be additional confidential, we call them confidential assets, but basically additional tokens issued on top of the blockchain. Protocol supports that. So imagine once you have that, and there are ways to enable certain smart contract-like functionality, part of it through what's called scriptless scripts, which is a very neat cryptographic technology that allows things like atomic swaps, escrow transactions, time lock transactions, and more. And we're researching more ways. So once you can issue A, additional tokens, and B, you can assign some sort of smarts to them. And this can go from something very simple to something going all the way to STO-like behavior, right? Where you say, okay, this token can only be transferred to another guy if that other guy meets certain criteria and can show his KYC and so on and so forth. There is more to the Beam blockchain than just one Beam coin being traded, which is great on its own, but it might grow to something much bigger.
Why don't we open it up? Let's go to some questions from the Cryptocopia Discord. Foolish Professional, who wants to ask you, Alexander, what is being done with the 20% fee on each mined block?
The 20% treasury is divided between three groups. Okay, we raise money from investors. So 35% of that treasury goes to the investors. To remind everyone, the treasury comprises 20% of all the coins issued in the first 5 years. It's according to our mission schedule. In the first 5 years, it will be about 150 million coins. So out of the 30 million go to the treasury. Now, out of that, 35% goes to the investors who risked their money to make this all happen. 40 to 45% remains with the core team and advisors and is used for development. 20% is slated for the foundation. So, and this foundation that will be set up hopefully very soon. It turned out to be a complex process of just setting up this nonprofit body. But the goal of the foundation will be just to fund the further development of the protocol after the company passes the control of the foundation. And we, as the original team, don't want to run that foundation. We might be on the foundation board, maybe 1 or 2 seats, but we don't want to be a majority there, definitely. So we want to attract people from the industry who, and the foundation will just distribute grants to developers, somewhat similar to what Zcash Foundation is doing, and maybe some others. So the idea is to pass the governance and the stewardship of the protocol to first the foundation, and then whenever the foundation kind of winds down after 5 or maybe more years, the goal is to get to a fully community developed project.
Yicky wants to know, is Litecoin planning for Mimblewimble addition on their chain?
Yeah, so that's what was announced, and they're now working on initial architecture of how this can look like. They're doing that on their own schedule, so we're talking periodically. It takes some time, so as I said, stay tuned. I hope we'll have some good news. Litecoin team got interested in Mimblewimble, and they started talking to us. We started kind of discussing how we can work together and how we can help them in their development and help them understand how Mimblewimble can fit Litecoin. And there was some talk about extension blocks, okay, which is not exactly a side chain, but something similar in nature. All right, so we had some initial conversation. It seems interesting. We're ready to help because we feel that is a good recognition of our expertise in the field, which is very true. But it takes time. So eventually, once it happens, then Litecoin might want or end up really implementing Mimblewimble as sidechain. Again, we'll need to see. There may be some challenges there. Technology.
Yeah, Alexander, thank you again for doing this. We'll be definitely, following Beam, and we're excited to see what you guys are up to over the course of next year. Until next time, Alexander. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. Thanks a lot. And thanks to all the guys in the community who asked the questions. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Us too. All right, take care. Until next time.
Yeah, until next time. Bye-bye.